that it's in yeah, you can see it there. And if you're holding it by the handle alone, if you hold it in the middle, it's balanced. But when you hold it by the handle, it's cantilevered out, and the weight becomes more. And if you're trying to use that saw where you're holding on to a branch with one hand, and you're cutting this way, across the top and the bottom, sometimes when you're cutting limbs, they can jam up even when you're working on the flat, in reference to on the top of them. You try working on the bottom of them, and the weight is pulling down on them. And I actually went out and I did 4 to 5 hours of very strenuous work, and I felt wonderful doing it. And the day before, if I did anything at all that was slightly strenuous, I'd have vertigo. I was rolling up some prints for the ASPCA to contribute to them, and I'd have to sit down in the chair. I'd get dizzy. But that day, the following day, put the saw down. I went out and worked for over 4 to 5 hours. And I felt like Paul Bunyan. I mean, I had amazing strength. And it felt wonderful. Then when the limbs would fall down, they sometimes would not part. So I'd grab hold of them and walk them 10 feet one way, 10 feet the other way, until they fell. In fact, I even started taking limbs down on another tree that was possibly bothering the lines running into the home. And now, I'll tell you how all this came about. The night before, I was in bed. My blood pressure was very erratic. I compared it with the Empire State Building. Sometimes it'd be very high, and other times it would just go down low. And I wanted to calm down. So I visualized myself. I had my own yawl for 7 years, and I sailed professionally for many years before that on sailboats. 109-foot schooner, 117-foot motor sailor to Canada, Bermuda, the Caribbean, and what have you. I worked on yachts for many years. I'm an old sailor, and I still love the sea. And it was just I wanted to come down to relax, so I visualized myself in the Caribbean again. I was on my sailboat, and I was sailing wing on wing. That's when you put the jib out one way and the main the other way, and you're on a perfect balance of sails, where it's beautiful, and you're just floating along, and it was wonderful. And I was enjoying myself so much, I wish somebody was with me. And so I shouted down below to the folks and below decks, and they said, "Is there anybody down there?" No reply. I heard a voice behind me, like over my shoulder, and I heard a voice say, "I am with you. I am with you." And I had this calmness come over me, and I just felt wonderful. My blood pressure was steady Eddie, and I had no idea of what would happen the next day when I went out to. We had a pickup truck parked in the yard, and my wife was concerned that we lost the home. They'd take the car too. And one of the big limbs was right up against the doors. So I went out with the idea of I'm going to try and remove that limb. And I was amazed at what I was capable of doing and the strength that I had. You take a young man and you try to hold one of those 14-pound steel saws just using the handle. The weight is out at the end, so it's heavier. I had no problem with it. I used to work in construction. If it was dangerous, I'd walk in I-beams and stuff like that in heavy construction. The older carpenters would say, "Let George do it." I had no fear of heights. And as a young man, I could even go up the shrouds of a sailboat, hand over hand, if you had to change one of the flags on the shroud. So I had strong arms and from sail handling. But that was a long time ago. I'm 80 now, and I'd like to think I'm in pretty fair shape. I mean, I've had a number of problems, circulation problems, earlier TIA, which is some form of strokes in that. Have to wear heart monitors at different times, but the old ticker keeps on ticking. And I used to think of my mother. I was her caregiver till she passed away at 99, and she was like the ever-ready bunny. Just kept on going. And in some ways, I'm like that too. I'm inspired by spirituality. I always was a spiritual person, but it became more so that when I was knocking at death's door. That happens. Say there are no atheists in foxholes. And I was in a state of grace, and I asked God to take me. But it wasn't my time to go yet. And I have a mission statement in life of sharing Christ's commands of love. Love God most of all, and love your neighbor as you love yourself. I added another one, which is his third command of love. John 13:34. Love your neighbor as I have loved you. That's unconditional. I work with people in rest homes, hospitals. I do prayer paintings for people. They'll need transplants, and they'll get them, and they'll live after that. I work with people who are supposed to die, and they don't. They'll say, George, I think it had something to do with that. I say, no, God had everything to do with that. There are times when I'm a facilitator, but He does the work. And there are times when people interfere with my work. It's almost like a dark cloud comes over them. And I do not like to see it, but accidents happen to them, health-wise and otherwise. I think one of the most dramatic cases was I was being sued for $17,000 when I was ill, and after paying close to $2 million in rent in my gallery. And somebody put the landlord up to that, and I'm taking my son to counseling, and somebody gave him a Bible, and he said, he knew I liked the Psalms. Again, my memory's not always that sharp. It's Psalm 23. But I gave him another number, and I said, if anybody ever does anything to you, come back on them. And I said, I've seen that happen time and again. I gave him another number. It was just like that. But it was the wrong one, but if anybody tries to damage you in any way, it comes back on them. He went in for counseling for 45 minutes, and I started at Psalm 1 until I came to Psalm 23. It was right around 3 o'clock. At 3 o'clock, my landlord, who was suing me for $17,000, shot himself. It's a pretty vivid affirmation. But I've seen other things like that continue to happen. Not quite as bad as that. I have a mission statement to try to be a peacemaker among the children of Abraham. We have too much hate in this world and anger. We need more love, and I'm outspoken about that. Well, I might be getting off a little bit off track. I also had macular degeneration. I used to wear thick glasses. I sang in the choir. I don't need any glasses anymore. The hole in the eye, back of my eye, that I had disappeared. After I had my hip replaced, my other hip was bothering me. I had a splinter in that. That disappeared. I prayed not to have another one. I went through hell the first time when they didn't check the compression hose. Another time I could hardly walk. I had venous reflux dermatitis. And the skin around my heel and foot became very thick and cracked with chasm, looked like raw flesh underneath. And it was awfully painful. I put the shower head on, and I said, let this be like Lourdes water. I've gone to Lourdes twice and worked with terminally ill people for years. And that skin peeled off like a banana peel. It was like baby skin underneath. I could walk after that. But anyway, may God bless you all.